All right. I'd like to call the December 17th, 2018 meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education to order. First up is to approve the minutes from the December 10th budget workshop. Yes.
Can I
Jen.
just need to make a correction. So the minutes that are printed in your handout, I think they were printed out before a change was made regarding the budget assumption second read. Maria did not abstain. She voted no. So it's correct on the website, and it's just for some reason this must have gotten printed before it was corrected.
Okay. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Penny?
So moved.
Second? Hazel? All those in favor? Abstain? No? Thanks. Next up is to review and approve the agenda. I think we have one amendment to the agenda tonight. We're going to add to the action items an approval of a South School PTC donation. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Deanna, second. Jen, all those in favor? Thanks. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. Sorry. Let's back up. Can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Penny, second. Hazel, all those in favor? Thanks. Thank you. So next up is comments from the public. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Yes, come on up. Yes, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Shakeba Bennett. I am a resident of New Canaan. I have a son in the 10th grade here at the high school. I am in big favor of a late start time. I think it's very important for students to get more sleep. I see it in my son. He's a swimmer. He's very tired all the time. So for him to have that extra hour of sleep, I think it's very important for him. I also feel that the sports, like swimming, if you're going to vote on a later school time, that should also be for the sports that do practice in the morning. They should either just be moved completely off the schedule or some other time that they could do their practice. So as a parent, I'm in favor of that. And also, my background, I'm a teacher. And from a teacher's perspective, it is so imperative to have students have that extra hour of sleep. I teach at Greenwich High School. I have taught in New York City before Greenwich, where the start time was at 7:30. Half of my class was asleep at 7:30 in the morning, my first block. Kids did not wake up till 9 a.m. So from 7:30 to 9 a.m., I was teaching to the wall because the kids are asleep. I teach photography. I'm in the art department. Oftentimes, I would find my students in the darkroom under the enlargers sleeping. Now, fast forward now that I'm at Greenwich, which has
15
a
seconds
later,
left.
which has a later time at 8:30, my students are awake. They're there, they're sitting at their computer. If it's a digital class, they're working in Photoshop. If it's a darkroom, they're in the darkroom printing. I have no issues of anybody sleeping.
It's 2 minutes.
And my time is up?
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as an educator, and I know there's a few here, I really, really think it's important for students to get more sleep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm slightly over 2 minutes, so I'll talk fast. Is this on?
Yes.
Does it matter? Okay.
Yep, that's good.
Tonight we want to talk about the petition we started last year. The signers are a diverse group, which makes sense because all teens are harmed by too early start times, whether they are performers, athletes, musicians, scientists, or artists. The signers include families of varsity athletes, families that are on the boards of youth sports organizations, including baseball, softball, football, ice and field hockey, lacrosse, basketball, and probably others. They include parents whose children are in the Challenge program, who are leads in the school theater, and on student council. There are PTC board members at all school levels, child nutritionists and psychologists, and every pediatrician in town. They include families whose children are all under 5 years old, and parents of seniors who hope their younger children don't have to lose sleep too. The petition even includes some of those long-suffering parents who are members of the League of Women Voters Committee that stood here 12 years ago, saying exactly the same things. A bit of background on this petition. I first contacted the district 3 years ago in 2015, but nothing came of that because the Saks expansion was a major project at the time. A project that the administration and the board formed a committee for because you thought overcrowding at Saks was a less than ideal environment for our kids. I don't dispute that that was a worthy undertaking, but was there a recommendation endorsed by every medical organization in the country telling us that our classrooms were too small? That was 3 years ago. 2 years ago, we contacted Dr. Lutzy, sending him the petition we were planning. He told us then, 2 years ago, that he didn't think we needed a petition because you were already working on it and would soon be forming a committee. We waited on that committee or other signs of real progress for a year. And then 1 year ago, we finally started the petition. We know you have seen these names in a spreadsheet, but it isn't clear that you've kept them in mind when deciding how quickly to take action.
15 seconds.
So we brought a great group of 7th graders here. They're a little bit tired because they're experiencing the 7:30 start for the first time. And they're going to help us read aloud the names on the petition. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hari Joshi. I live in 151 Frogtown Road. And here are names. The Abates, the Aaronses, the Alfiers, the Alukas, the Amis, the Anderhagens, the Anfidzen, the Angers, the Anisbergers, the Antonius, the Ericses, the Azopartis, the Box, the Bairds, the Bajads, the Bakers, the Bakers, the Bakers, the Bakers, the Baldanese, the Bonets, the Barbers, the Barotos, the Boschs, the Basilius, the Bates Masons, the Batistas, the Bavosos, the Beans, the Beechers, the Belopskis, the Bentons, the Bergmans, the Boylans, the Birminghams, the Biceses, the Blanks, the Blooms, the Berets, the Boris, the Bosons, the Bothwells, the Bolangers, the Boyces, the Bradleys, the Breeds, the Breenons, the Brewers, the Brills, the Brillos, the Brolls, the Broshouse, the Browns, the Bruners, the Bryants, the Bukais, the Bundis, the Burkes, the Busbys, the Kayas, the Calabas, the Camerons, the Campes, the Campsis, the Canas, the Candies, the Cannons, the Cannon Raymonds, the Carlbergs, the Carlsons.
The Carpus, the Cruz, my name's Elizabeth McLaughlin, and I live in 13 Woodbridge Circle. The Crusoes, the Caseys, the Castanels, the Castles, the Chang, the Chisholms, the Seminos, the Clarks, the Calfreds, the Cofins, the Cods, the Codys. I have a dog named Cody. The Coffeys, the Collins, the Colpopes, the Connollys, the Cullens, the Quins, the Crawfords, the Crowles, the Crowleys, the Crystals, the Cudas, the Cullens, the Crulis, the Curcios, the Curtis, the Cushings, the Cushmans, the Cutlers, the Denonis, the Dahills, the Dans, the Daphnes, the Davenports, the DeCharias, the DeCamilles, the DeJatches, the Denny's, the DePisters, the DeVitos, the DeCosimos, the Gisosos, the Gicamas, the Dimuzios, the Dins, the Genovas, the Gerosos, the Dokes, the Dohertys, the Dolans, the Donohus, the Doors, the Dwarfsmans, the Dormans, the Trappins, the Dunlops, the Duns, the Carlos, the Eberns, the Eglars, the Elis, the Elms, the Enos.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Joshi, and I live on 151 Frogtown Road. The Enos, the Escugaderos, the Eterginos, the Evans, the Fagerstalls, the Fangs, the Felines, the Fergusons, the Ferraros, the Foosters, the Ficos, the Finnertys, the Fitzpatricks, the Flattos, the Fleischmans, the Fawns, the Foxes, the Friedmans, the Fricks, the Fries, the Ferdins, the Furmans, the Gages, the Gallagher's, the Grays, the Gas, the Genserals, the Gareys, the Gilberts, the Gilberts, the Gilberts, the Gillios, the Jerstons, the Glovers, the Goets, the Goldmans, the Grabers, the Gregorians, the Gregs, the Grennans, the Brownies, the Haddads, the Hamiltons, the Hannicks, the Hansons, the Harrisukes, the Harpers, the Harringtons, the Hauslers, the Havens, the Havilands, the Haslins, the Hellmans, the Hendricks, the Herbigs, the Hermans, the Hewitts, the Hills, the Hills, the Hills, the Hills, the Himmels, the Hosts, the Hoffmans, the Hoffesteins, the Hodgenacks, the Hollands, the Holtmans, the Hopkins, the Hose, the Hughes, the Hunters, the Hussars, the Inmans, the Jans, the Jammins, the Jans, the Jensens, the Jessups, the Gians.
My name's Andy Lee. I'm in 8th grade. I live at 21 Shady Knoll Lane, New Canaan, Connecticut. The Jins, the Just, the Kane Duns, the Kaisers, the Kanas, the Kaups, the Kaya Savasoglus, the Cannons, the Kennys, the Kieskes, the Kims, the Kittredges, the Kivikos, the Clarmans, the Cox, the Kolbs, the Kongs, the Conidaris, the Cordicats, the Kozars, the Kozlowskis, the Creamers, the Crops, the Cupjacks, the Kurtzes, the Lacks, the Lampins, the Langfords, the Lappins, the La Rocas, the Lascas, the Lasusas, the Lawrences, the Lavins, the Leviolas, the Lays, the Layaks, the Lees, the Lees, the Lees, the Leibowitzes, the Lenahans, the Leschinskis, the Leslies, the Levinez, the Lewis, the Lees, the Liangs, the Lindberghs, the Lews, the Lloyds, the Lockharts, the Lords, the Lois, the Lomans, the Lacarellis, the Lundbergs, the Lynches, the Maculisters, the Mackenzies, the McClears, the Maglunks, the Magiora Borados,
My name is Lauren Eno. I live at 133 Springwater Lane. Okay. The McAllisters, the Mackenzies, the McClears, the McClings, the Magiora Borados, the Mahales, the Mahonies, the Malakovas, the Malahotros, the Mirandas, the Markellas, the Marshalls, the Martys, the Martinez, the Machias, the Gins, the Juice, the Kinduns, the Kaisers, the Khans, the Kaups, the Caius Savalugosas, the Kennans, the Kennys, the Kaizeks, the Kims, the Kittredges, the Kivioks, the Clarmans, the Cox, the Clobs, the Kongs, the Conidaris, the Corticos, the Kozars, the Klozawiskis, the Creamers, the Crops, the Cupchalks, the Kurtzes, the Locks, the Lompins, the Langfords, the Loppins, the Laracosas, the Laskas, the Lasuskas, the Lawrences, the Lavins, the Laviolas, the Leahys, the Lees, the Hamiltons, the Hainichs, the Hansons, okay, the Mastrionis, the Mastriodonis, the Matterns, the Matthews, the Mazes, the McCarthys, the McClaves, the McComb Hewitts, the McDaniels, the McDermotts, the McDevitts, the McGearys, the McGees, the McInnertys, the McMahons.
Hi, I'm Sophie Price, and I live on 18 Tommy's Lane. The Mengs, the Mercedes, the Morills, the Missanas, the Metlers, the Myers, the Michaels, the Millars, the Milligans, the Minters, the Mitchells, the Mohammeds, the Moleys, the Monotony Schofields, the Moore, the Morawas, the Morris, the Morrisons, the Mukherjees, the Murphys, the Murrays, the Navarro Gundersons, the Netters, the Nedelchifs, the Nelsons, the Newmans, the Norleys, the Nortons, the Olafsons, the Olesons, the O'Reillys, the O'Sheas, the Owesis, the Paboons, the Pachetos, the Paladinos, the Palmers, the Pantaleos, the Panzanos, the Perigis, the Perinos, the Perrys, the Pashidonalis, the Pasios, the Pattersons, the Pangs, the Penmans, the Perez, the Pertusilios, the Pesaturos, the Petrovids, the Petrides, the Pincones, the Pesots.
So in the interest of time, we're going to stop there. You probably weren't counting, but
So we have two, yeah, we have 2 minutes left.
370 names out of 624.
Tough act to follow. This is not about school start times. Hello, everyone. My name is James Bash. I live at 295 Smith Ridge Road with my wife and twins, both of whom are enrolled in the 2nd grade at East School. Hi, Holden and Riley. There are many aspects of New Canaan Public Schools that you all should be proud of contributing to. My kids' teachers have been excellent and provide a welcoming classroom to learn. This, along with the prioritization of education among families, has driven consistently strong educational outcomes versus our district reference group and more broadly. With that said, there are areas for improvement, especially in the current fiscal environment. Our home values have continued to deteriorate dramatically while taxes and spending move higher. Increasingly, residents like myself will be scrutinizing how our tax dollars are spent in public forums to create greater awareness and push for greater efficiency and financial prudence. I'll conclude with some examples of spending or lack of savings that run counter to taxpayer interests. Increasing full-time equivalents by 9% over the last 10 years, while enrollment is up 2%. At current spending of $22,000 per student, we could maintain the same ratio of FTEs per student and realize over $2 million in annual savings from the decline in students over the last 2 years, and a further $4 million if NESDEC's projected enrollment over the next 3 years is close to being accurate. Spending $975,000 on renovation to the leased administrative offices ahead of a planned move when we have 57 town-owned properties. Hiring outside consultants for over $30,000 in 1 year on social emotional learning programs when we spend close to $2 million a year on psychologists and social workers in-house. Not allowing a town council member to even observe labor negotiations when BOE wages and benefits consume half of taxpayers' dollars. 2 separate administrative retreats, one on emotional intelligence and the other a happiness workshop at an expensive restaurant in Darien with a publicly undisclosed specific expense.
10
With all
seconds.
this spending on wellness initiatives that have questionable efficacy, why are we dragging our feet on the school start time initiative that has proven efficacy? was a shameless plug.
We have 2 minutes. I mean, your 2 minutes
Outside
is
of
up.
expense savings, there are revenue opportunities from having at least a dozen empty or underutilized classrooms that haven't been discussed.
So your 2
Despite
minutes
these
is
and-
up.
And
Sorry.
many more examples, I'm confident you guys are going to come back with a 3% budget, up budget. That can't continue. Thanks for your time.
Any other speakers? Thank you. Next up is reports and recognition. The first is school start times update with the administration. Dr. Letsley to start, and
Sure.
also the board.
Sure. First, I guess I know who to tap now if we need speakers for graduation. We could run through graduation in about 20 minutes, I think, principals. What do you think with that pace of reading the names? But the couple of updates, as we've talked about with the board around the school start times. First, I wanted to let the board know that we've been developing a website that's going to go live tomorrow. The website will help us to communicate the work that we've been doing and the progress we've made in this area. It'll be on the district page, and links will be on the homepage as a quick links as well. At the site, you'll find an overview of the ongoing work that we've been doing, links to resources such as the Hanover studies, the Bell Time options analysis, survey analysis, presentations to the board that have occurred throughout the years, focus group feedback, the sheet, the information about all of that, and other resources, both internal to the work that we've done and external, linking to other folks' work. We're excited to share this work with the community. I think it'll be a nice clearinghouse to keep people updated on our progress as the district continues to look at all of this. So we intend to go live with that tomorrow, and we'll be sending some information around to the community as well, inviting them to come in and take a look. We're also beginning a student survey tomorrow morning, very brief survey. We'll be administering it for the first time. The intention is to do this several times, we've talked about it a little bit before, so that we can capture the ways that students are spending their time outside of the school day. Specifically, the question, it's really a single question survey, it asks how much time did students spend on the following activities when school ended yesterday at 2:05 and then when it started again today at 7:30. It asks students to enter the number of hours. Their total may not exceed the 17 and a half hours that's there. So it asks things like how many hours for sleeping, for homework, for commuting, working, academic activities, non-academic activities, self-care, screen time, independent activities with friends, with families. We tried to be as inclusive as we could, but then of course there's the other category. And these will actually total up for them to show them the number of minutes or hours that they spend doing this. I think we've been talking about it for a while. It'll be helpful in a number of ways. One, it's a self-awareness piece for our students as they start to reflect on their use of time. Two, it just helps us to understand sort of what happens with our students outside of the school day, so that we can be sure that we're in conversations about all of these things with our students, their parents, what have you, as we continue to think about different options. It also gives us some pre-data. In the very beginning, I mentioned last week, we started off with a survey. We asked Hanover to perform for us, actually some research, to have them look at districts that have made a change in their school start time and realized the gains that they were intending and hoping for over a long period of time, and things that went well. And Hanover really had a hard time finding schools with a pre and a post, because people do it and they understand, they use the research, and they looked and they had a lot of anecdotal information, but they didn't have a lot of true sort of measurement data that they could look at to say, here was the before and here's the after. So we're really trying to do this as thoughtfully and strategically as possible. So we want to capture that data in advance. On Wednesday and Thursday, representatives from Transportation Advisory Services, that's the TAS group that was here earlier with the Bell Time analysis, they'll be on site working through the traffic study. They're going to be looking at several dimensions of traffic. I know we identified that, the board identified that as another important component of this work and some information that we need. So they're going to be looking at traffic in general as far in relation to the school facilities and getting buses on or off the property. They're going to be looking at the high school and how the buses are exiting the high school at the end of the day, giving some suggestions on ways that we can try to improve that and try to shorten that time. But most importantly, given where we are and things that have been sort of considered and we're thinking about, is for them to take a good look at SACs and to let us know what it would take for SACs to work on one dismissal time. So the idea there is, as you know, we have 3 tiers. The Currently, the system is set up where SACS is split across 2 tiers, and of course, that influences other thinking and decisions and options. If we can figure out a way to have SACS all at once, I think that meets several needs over at SACS, and in meeting with the faculty and the administration there, they've expressed that that is a desire to have one building start and end time. But it also gives us quite a bit more flexibility with the other buildings, because now we can put SACS together on one tier, and then we can look at other options with the elementaries and the high school that really don't exist right now because we have to split SACS. So they're coming on site to have those conversations with some folks. They're going to be meeting with the administration over at SACS. They're going to be meeting with other folks in the community, with me, with some of the people internally. Certainly Roy will be a big part of that. But they'll be doing that work on site. They've been doing work already, but they'll be on site Wednesday and Thursday of this week to do what they need to do in order to finish up the report and get it to us as soon as possible. The last piece, there have been some requests for timeline for the work. And so while it's difficult to say with certainty what the timeline should be, given that we're still kind of continuing to work through possible solutions and checking for feasibility and trying to get to an option that we can really get behind and think is the right thing for all of the district's 4,200 or so students. I think it's fair to say we should have set as a target for the administration to bring information to the board to get you information on possible scenarios and time to make a decision prior to, or in a June timeline. Certainly, there are lots of folks, and we understand, that would prefer a change more soon or sooner than that. But given all the variables that exist and the fact that we don't yet have the best solution, I believe it's prudent and fair to target June as that latest date to try to have scenarios that have been discussed in advance so that we don't go into the summer without sort of having some direction, if possible, of where we're going to be going. I go back to Mark's research and what he presented to the board, Mark Walsh from TAS, where he said, really October is that window. If by October you can do the runs and scenario planning and things of a significant change. Certainly if it's a small tweak, then we would look to do things as soon as possible around that too. But it's the idea, the quality of the idea will be kind of governed by the quality of the implementation, and we want to make sure that we can do the implementation correctly. So as I talk with our folks and we're trying to work out kind of where can we go with this, I think that making sure there's enough time for the board to weigh whatever options come forward in order to be able to give some solid direction in June. I think we'll use that as a target at this point. And that's all that it is. We look at it as a target, but I think you have to start setting targets around this work as a way, certainly a sign of good faith. We've had lots of folks asking for that. The board's commitment to student wellness should and does go beyond school start times as well. So just to share, it also includes upcoming conversations we'll be having in the winter and the spring about graduation requirements, emotional intelligence, school safety conversation we just had and will continue, the health education that's going on, and certainly invite everyone to come back for all of those as well. These are all very important initiatives, and they're all focused on creating the best environment that helps our students as much as possible and is focused on student wellness. Start and end times are an important element to all of those discussions. So we're approaching it strategically and thoughtfully, but also respecting the need for urgency, as has been shared with us and demonstrated by the participation and the comments that have been shared with us at the board meetings. So that's where we are as a district, and we're excited to go live with a website tomorrow, and we'll continue to keep that updated. We're thinking about it in the same way that we work with our budget website, whereas we continue to learn more information, we'll continue to put it there so that there is a place that people can go, sort of a clearinghouse of information. And certainly we continue to pursue various options that, as we test them for feasibility and what have you, we'll continue to keep the board in the loop in those dialogues as well. And that's our district update.
Great, thank you. I'll just say a couple things. I think it's great that we have a timeline. I also think it'll be nice to gather as a full board and sort of get periodic updates from you and presentations from others who are looking at this particular issue, as well as all the other things that you mentioned that go into student wellness. What they're doing throughout the day, what their schedule looks like, et cetera. So thank you for that update. Any questions or comments? Maria?
What grades will be taking the student survey?
Tomorrow it's the high school.
So just the high school?
Just the high school is going to grab just a couple of minutes. We think, it's just literally that one question, so we think 2 or 3 minutes, just right out of their first period while it's fresh in their minds. We are going to look to expand it to 7th and 8th grade, but we wanted to run it first with the high school group, and then if there are any kinks or anything, we figured we could work it out before that. And I have to work with Principal Gusich to figure out the best way to do it there.
Great. Hazel?
I just wanted to compliment you on the idea of using the, excuse me, computer site, because it's something that will allow all of us to go to, be able to see what's happening, and not by accident. I think sometimes people tell a story a little bit differently, 2 or 3 different people, whereas if it's one site, we can all keep the information going as to what we all agree on or what needs to be changed.
Great, thank you.
Jen?
So I know that they're doing the traffic study. Like, how are we going to be getting that type of information? Like, when you get the results from the traffic study and when you get the results from the survey, like, are we going to be just periodically getting these at meetings, or like, how is that going to be laid out? Like, and also, like, you know, we've talked about Greenwich and Ridgefield and what's worked and what hasn't. Like, I would love to know that. Like, are we going to be periodically, like, how are we going to get this information?
Sure. So as far as the studies go, so as far, for instance, the traffic study.
Right.
It depends on the extent of the feedback. It would be, as we did when Mark came, it was a big formal presentation that he led us through as the board. Something like that, I think we would get the results and the recommendation, and we would probably put 10 minutes aside to go through it with the board a little bit more formally, more formal than just reading through like this. And maybe a couple of visuals to sort of, to help people understand what we're talking about, and then we'll put it on the website from there. Findings from other districts, I remain in conversation with all of those superintendents. It's always, there's positives and negatives as they go through, but they're continuing to learn. Greenwich is continuing to learn from the changes that they made. Ralph and I talk, he's the superintendent there. Even just last Friday, we were talking about it at length. So, I mean, that's, I guess, probably, well, I don't necessarily like talking about other districts at board meetings. I think that I can sort of clear with the superintendents and the folks that are in those districts around what they're comfortable sharing about what's working and what's happening. It's probably too new for any kind of meaningful scientific study, so to speak, from there. But, we can continue to report out.
Right. I mean, I guess if June is like, if we're saying that June is what the time that we're going to be making a decision, like, that's our target. So, like, I just feel like there's a lot, to build up to that, and a lot of discussion. And, I mean, I would love it to be in a format where we can discuss it, openly. Because, again, like, I don't really know how anyone on our board feels about this, because we've never really, openly discussed that. I don't know if we can do that in a workshop format. I don't know.
I think that's probably a good idea. We can look at scheduling a workshop or an opportunity for the board to get together with the sole agenda item as an open discussion. It's an open public meeting when we have our workshops, and so we would probably have it here and, notice it and do what we do, and give the board an opportunity to sort of look at everything all at once.
So then
but that's really when we have some scenarios that are really feasible, that meet the needs, I think, of students across the district, would be a more appropriate time to do that.
So then it comes to the budget. Like, so our budget, that stuff is buttoned up, and we're signing off on it in a month. Or maybe less. I mean, us as a board.
Yeah, it's not buttoned up yet. But,
no, I know, but I mean, us as a board.
But yes, the budget
we
presentation
approve
is the 7th of January is the first, and then 2 weeks later is the second read of the superintendent's budget, and then it goes through the town boards over the next couple of months.
Right. So then that just gets, difficult, because it clearly doesn't, like, if it costs a lot of money, we're not going to have the money in the budget. Right.
Well, with a June decision, depending upon the magnitude of the change, if it's a small change that is a small magnitude, then maybe there's something you can do. But if it's larger than that, it's more than money. It's all of what it takes to do all of the routing and rerouting, the scheduling, and all of that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Maria?
Is it possible to include parents in some way on the survey, because the perception of how a 13 or 14-year-old spends their time may be different from how a parent sees it? So can that same survey in some way, or even, I know we've gotten a lot of input from parents, is there a way to tap parents' input
That
specifically?
could be interesting feedback. We can't use this one in particular, only because they have to identify grade, and when they do, it self-selects in or out or what have you. But that's something we can look at, and maybe do just one administration to parents on the same day as the students or something in the future.
Should parents just
explore that.
continue also just giving feedback the way they have been? I know a lot of parents have some thoughts about, what they would like to see or some creative thinking going on. Should they continue to just write as they've been?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we're reading
Yeah,
what's coming in.
Until there's a survey of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are reading the emails that come in, and people are putting thought into a lot of them, and really thinking about different possibilities and other options. I do want people to know we're also looking at this every which way, as we do it, and we do, look at different groupings of schools and times and making things work, and then running them against certain kind of feasibility checks, around, and budget's a big part of it, but it's timing, it's, again, it's, the start times are driven by the amount of time it takes to drive the students home in the afternoon. So we're always looking at, if we can shave a little bit of time in the afternoon, then we can pick up that time in the morning. That's where the traffic study about getting the buses off the high school property is going to be helpful, because if we can shave a few minutes there's a possibility of earning them back in the morning. So, people are doing so, having lots of conversations, I think, and doing some good thinking, and it's all welcome.
And I would support Jen, too. I would love some kind of a workshop, to sort of hash things out.
I feel like that would make sense at some point after we're through budget season, and, we've probably gotten one or two more updates on some of the analysis that the administration's doing. And then we can sit down and talk through various options. Does that make sense? Penny?
I would certainly support one or more workshops, because I think that's a good format, maybe after the January time period when we've gotten our budget together.
Right.
And also, what I'd wonder is if when our consultant is looking at getting the buses off quickly, if there are suggestions that they have that involve structural changes to the campus. It would be, I think we should, if we think we might like those ideas, I think we should include placeholders in our capital budgets, possibly, and have a place to sort of refine that. If we think, because those might be changes that we could implement next year, just to improve the current system, we don't know. But and I would throw that out there, since I'm not going to be at some of the January meetings, just to the board, that you might want to have a placeholder there for structural changes. My other comment is, if we can, I'd like to read some research or understand what the earliest school start time is for the younger grades. We have an awful lot of research and information that we've gotten about what's the appropriate time for high schoolers and teenagers. I talked to one parent whose children are in Wilton, and she said the 3rd through 5th grade, starting at 7:40, works very well there. And so I guess rather than go off one parent's analysis in some of the scenarios we have, I don't know if there's a way for the experts to come give us some guidance on that question.
We're looking to see what we can pull together. Dr. Bliss is looking at that for us. You're right in saying there's significantly less research about the younger students than there is about the adolescents. So we'll pull that together and we'll share it.
Okay. Thanks.
What else? All right. Next on the list is statement of accounts with Dr. Keating.
Good evening.
Should we tell
You
them
have
for
before you
everybody?
the November 30th Statement of Accounts. We are 5 months into the fiscal year, 30% through the school year. And we have spent 33.7% of our budget, which is in line with our spending plan in a typical year. We have 57.9% of our budget encumbered, which is also very typical for this time of year. And consistent with previous months, 73% of that encumbrance is for salaries. The balance that is unencumbered is 8.4%, and that really relates to things that are not conducive to encumbrances, such as substitute teachers, stipends, overtime, and utilities. One area that we've been watching is the excess cost in tuition out of district. We're currently over budget by $360,000. And we're going through the reforecast right now, looking at every single account in the budget, which is over 700 accounts total. And we should have that wrapped up in the next few days, the analysis for that reforecast. That will help us determine how much of that we're going to need to have covered by the excess cost grant. And I do expect that we're going to have to draw some of that money down to cover that shortfall. But we'll have more on that next month. Next month, we'll align the statement of accounts with the reforecast, and you'll have transfers to approve at that meeting. Any questions?
Deanna?
So just wanted to understand, because we talked about possibly having the total, what our total excess cost grant eligibility at the town on this report, and when we might be able to see that number on this report on the front page as a footnote.
We usually hear from the state on February 1st as to what the allocation is going to be.
Okay.
So we filed for close to 1.5 million,
Okay.
but it's always a percentage of that number based on how much all districts in the state of Connecticut put in for, because the allocation or the appropriation for excess cost is a finite number.
Okay.
So it really depends on who's putting in. It's usually around 70%, so it'll be over $1 million.
Okay. So we won't be able to see that footnote until February is what you're...
It would be a guess right now because they publish on February 1st typically.
Any other questions? Okay. Next is action items. First is the 2020-2021 calendar for first read. Any discussion? Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion to approve for first read the 2020-2021 New Canaan Public Schools District Calendar? Deanna?
So moved.
Second. Jen? Any discussion?
So I'll just briefly share, we do bring the calendars forward well in advance, so this is not next year, but the year out from there. We look to try to have these finalized in January, so about a year and a half in advance. This calendar before you is not following the regional calendars, because that statute is now gone. They still put them out from the RESCs, but it's just a guide if you'd like to do it. What we look to do, given the start dates and where things fall, is have our convocation and professional learning days the end of the fourth week in August, and then begin on August 31st and roll into September 1st. It does provide us with a good number of days at the end, because we're getting a few days extra in the beginning. As you know, we like to have, the 3 days are very good for staff, I think, as we begin the school year where we can do it. So the convocation brings everyone together, and then they have their assignments and go to their rooms and meet with folks and parents and meet and greets and those things, and then 2 professional learning days. And then we have the weekend to do what have you, and then prepare for that Monday start. So as you see, it actually has us having as our last day, June 17th, as a half day. The board also has a policy that says that the last day of school should be no later than the Friday of the 3rd full week in June. This gives us 6 days if need be. We hope we don't need them, of course, because that's 6 mornings I'm waking up at 4 in the morning. But it does build in enough time, I think, for the board, for the district, to be able to plan. So just as a first reading at this point, we'll put it up on the website for people to review, and wanted to just get it in your hands.
Deanna?
I'd like to make a suggestion that we add to this calendar some sort of notation for the last possible day of school. I know in years where we get lots of snow days or things, there's a lot of confusion among parents. So, if we could make some special notation of the last possible day, and maybe even the last possible day for teachers or something like that.
So at the bottom right, and if this doesn't cover it, we're
Yeah.
certainly glad to take a look and try to do something a little differently.
Yeah.
But it does. We added this a couple of
Yeah.
years ago. It says students, parents, and staff should be aware that the April vacation may be shortened if there are more than 6 snow days. The school year may also be extended to as late as June 30th in the event of unanticipated closures due to weather or other factors. Because while we have a Board of Ed policy that gives us the Friday of the 3rd full week,
Right.
the state law, which trumps the policy, says you actually can go right up to the very last day in June if need be. So what we look to do is if we're going to go beyond that third full week, we take the days out of April, and which we've done in the past, and we try to work backwards that way. So we tried to, because there's sort of competing policy
Yeah.
and statute,
Yeah.
we tried to
That makes sense.
explain
And we
it
have to
in
vote,
prose.
yeah.
But to put a box out there, I thought would be
Yeah.
confusing to try to put it out. Because really, the last day for everyone is always June 30th, or the last school day in June, regardless of what you try to do.
You know what, just so that, because I know people don't read anymore, maybe on the 30th, you make a notation on the 30th, some kind of mark on the 30th that references that note, so that people know to look at that note.
Sure, we'll play with it a couple of
Yeah,
different ways.
whatever,
And
yeah.
take a look and see if it helps clarify for that. Sure, glad to.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, next on the list is the South School PTC donation.
Yes.
Dr. Lutzy.
The donation from the South School PTC is for 2 water fillers, one outside the gym and then another outside room 110 between the boys and the girls' room, bathroom. We have them in buildings already. We've got them here at the high school, over at Saxon and others. Those bottle fillers significantly reduce the use of plastic water bottles in our classes, in our schools. If you saw 60 Minutes last night, they had a very compelling piece on the ways that plastic is destroying the oceans and really a permanent pollutant, essentially. And some of the efforts to try to reduce plastic in the oceans and some of the challenges they're up against. So it's very timely. We've got a PTC over at South that's very active in this. They feel strongly that part of their goals this year and part of their mission is to help educate students to reuse, reduce, recycle. And so these bottle fillers are right in line with the work that they've been doing over there. And hopefully we can raise a generation of students who are less dependent upon plastic in the future, and maybe we can start to bend the curve on what's going on with the plastic and how it's destroying the planet. So I think it's a great move. I'm fully in support of it.
Great.
I know, we'll recycle them, but I tried boxed water. Maybe it's time to try it again. Yeah, nobody liked it. Try it again. So it's very, very generous, of course, and it's the idea, again, kids come in with their water bottles, fill them up right there. And it actually keeps count of how many water bottles you've saved by
Yeah, it's
having
great.
the filler, and
It's
it's
great for kids to
a
see.
cool thing.
Yeah. Diana?
I want to just make sure, because I think these are great, and it's fabulous for the schools and for the kids, and it's great education. But I just want to make sure that the installation of those fillers, there's no need to, go into any walls or.
Oh, sure. So, there's a whole lot of work that goes around this. We communicate with the town. Brian Platt's in the building department. We talk with him. He comes out, looks at it, and makes sure the site is appropriate, anything, because it does sometimes have to go into the wall. So all of that is approved. We get all the permits. The town is involved with it. And then we work as the GC for the project. So our facilities department will help them connect with someone who will do the install. The PTC will pay for the install, and it's all part of their donation. But we can coordinate them with the town and to make sure that all of the approvals are in place and everything is the way that it should be. So yes, so it's all done with the knowledge of the building department and all the permits that we need. Was that your question?
You know how going into old walls.
There's no abatement. or
Oh, no, that's all
anything
checked.
expected.
That's
Okay.
all, that's
That's
where,
my-
that's
so
where the
that was
town
my
is a part of
question.
that. Exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
No,
So
no,
we're not
it's-
worried about that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, great.
And,
Maria?
yeah.
Maria?
Is the water filtered, or does it come with a filter?
It does. Yep, yep, it does. It comes with a filter, and then that becomes a part of routine, PM. So it just gets changed periodically. It has a little light, comes on, change filter.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. All right.
One more question.
Oh, no, sorry. Move.
No?
I was just going to move.
Oh,
I move to approve the donation.
thank you, Deanna. Second? Hazel? All those in favor? Thanks. All right, comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, my name is Marianne Fichtel. I live at 216 Old Norwalk with my husband and 2-year-old son. So not yet but not yet. But we're hoping to hang on long enough. The key, I'm kind of echoing what James was talking about before, but to me, so I lived in New York City for 20 years and really excited to be a resident of a small town again. So for the last 6 months or so, I've been really trying to get informed about, engaged with the process of how the town is run. The biggest stumbling block that I've come across, and this isn't exclusively a Board of Ed issue, but it is the largest part of our budget, so it's quite relevant, is kind of opacity when trying to figure out the process of how budgets get submitted and approved and estimated. I mean, a good example just came up when you mentioned you don't find out what money you're getting from the state until February, but the budget's being presented in January, so there's a bit of a mistiming there and kind of confuses the process. The transparency as well, and you mentioned having more info online. That's great. I've spent many hours trying to answer questions for myself rather than burden you guys with them. But the way a lot of the budgets are presented, certain line items are bucketed, and then you can't reconcile them against a similar, you've got staffing on one page bucketed one way, and costs, for instance, bucketed differently somewhere else. So it's impossible for someone like me to reconcile them. So basically, it's a kind of early, I'm just asking that everybody think going into it, town council needs to think the same way, that you guys work a lot more collaboratively and not adversarially, because that's the dynamic I've been picking up, and I think it's not helpful to the townspeople, and I do think that full transparency on a line item basis would, for me, I could answer a lot of these questions myself, and if you know that you're spending the money and it would stand up to public scrutiny, then there shouldn't be a problem with that. So, thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Thanks. Oh.
Good evening. I'm Janie Conaderas. I just want to make sure that I understand what you said earlier. So the plan going forward regarding later start time is that the administration is going to continue conducting the research and is going to communicate to the Board of Education and members of the public via the website in an effort to keep everyone more informed. My question is, how will this information be discussed in a meaningful way? Will the site include a project plan with specific tasks and dates leading up to that June target date? When the transportation consultants form conclusions that may or may not be in the best interest of our town, who is going to be reviewing that information? Why can't we have a subcommittee to work on this process with administration? I'd like to strongly encourage all of you to please go back to your earlier commitment to form a committee to work directly with administration and the consultants. If you are afraid or reluctant to include the parents on this committee, okay, but at the very least, please include members of the Board of Education. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thanks. Next is announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy.
Yes, this is our last meeting of the year. So our next meeting will be January 7th, and we typically have one item on that agenda, which is the presentation of the superintendent's budget proposal, so we'll have that on as well. The opportunity for me to say happy holidays to everyone. I know our students are eagerly awaiting the break. I know that our senior students are eagerly awaiting feedback from many of the colleges that they've been applying to. There's a lot going on, and we all are looking forward to a wonderful holiday together. So our winter season is underway. Opening day in our winter sports, our visual and performing arts. They're working and preparing for future shows, and our kids just keep on doing everything that our kids do. It's great stuff. So thank you. And from the administration to the board to everyone, just hope you have a wonderful holiday break.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to adjourn? Penny, second. Maria. All those in favor? Thanks.
Great. Thanks.